Most of my first responders that I work with are under eating all day and then eating their largest meal at night, which guess what that does?
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Blah, Blah, Blah Something Wellness podcast. We are kicking off a new month and we are talking about fitness and nutrition. And we have a really awesome panel today. We have a familiar face. We have our Chief of Staff, Greg Nottingham. And if you've watched any of these episodes, you'll hear us mention this lady named Kim all the time. And we actually have Kim in the house today. So we'll have her introduce herself and then we have special guests. So on that note, I am your host, Tami Sharp. Greg, do your quick intro. Kim will have you introduce yourself, and then our special guests can introduce themselves.
Thank you, Tammy. Good morning, everyone. My name is
Morning.
Greg Nottingham, and I am a retired sergeant from the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, where I served for 31 years. And I am currently the Chief of Staff, as Tammy said, for law enforcement coaching and one of their master coaches.
Kim?
Yes. Hi, I'm Kim Cairns. I am the functional nutritionist at Heart Fit for Duty. We are primary care that focuses on well-being for first responders and their families. My role there is to work within the clinic to work with first responders one-on-one. And then the other big part of my job is going off-site and teaching within the departments, different nutrition trainings and whatnot. So I bring a background of college athletics. I was a college softball player and then also a high school teacher. So blending both of those together has just been the best fit, being able to serve our community and our first responders. So really excited to be here again. Thank you for having me, Tammy.
Thank you. And whichever one of you guys wants to go first.
All right. So my name's Caleb Cuevas. I'm a captain paramedic with Phoenix Fire Department. I've been with them for 21 years. So I'm going to be retiring in a few years. Thank God for that. So I got in contact with Kim through Heart Fit for Duty. I was am a patient there about a year ago, a little over a year ago. And we've been chatting ever since. She's been helping me along my journey of kind of changing some things about my lifestyle, my eating, and all of that stuff. So I've kind of kept her in the loop about my progress over the past year. Then over the past couple of months, we've been communicating a lot more, helping her with little projects and things like that. And then, of course, we got the invite for today. So thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Caleb. My name is Brad Hall. I am the owner of Phoenix Tactical Healthcare, Phoenix with an F. We are a multidisciplinary healthcare practice. So originating by trade and by license as physical therapists, but expanding into primary care, mental health services. We're highly engaged with Kim and every wonderful thing that she does. Our newest venture frontier has been getting away from the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff, reactive mindset, and getting more into some prophylactic preventative services for law enforcement. So that's been super exciting. Originally here from Arizona and got a wife and kids here in Queen Creek. I actually have 5 boys. My life is insane. People keep saying, "Are you going to try for a girl?" And I tell them, no one can promise me that girl unless I pay them like $12,000. So anyway, I hope we're done. We'll see.
Well, and you know what would be crazy is you'd have a girl and she'd probably be the most feral of everybody and just go like nuts.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, and Kim, you're a boy mom as well, and I have my daughter and then my stepson, but I couldn't, like, kudos to you guys with the boys. It's a lot.
It's insane.
Love it. I was born to be a boy mom. Love it.
That's great. Okay. Well, cool. I want to kind of set the baseline. For you guys, we'll just make it kind of the Kim show, but not really. But where were you guys at with your nutrition before you met Kim?
Oh, it was awful. I mean, I just ate what I wanted. I'm pretty active, so um, and then of course at work sometimes we do mountain rescues, so I might go on a 2 or 3 hour hike and work, to get a patient off Camelback or something. So I pretty much ate whatever I wanted. I kind of justified it because I might get a call like that, but a lot of times we didn't. And so, yeah, I just shoved whatever into my gullet I wanted to. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Kim wants to say something. Go, Kim.
What did you say?
I said you want to say something. I can tell.
No, I'm not judging at all. I'm just sitting here loving that all my friends are in one spot right now. But when I met Caleb, it was a little over a year ago, and he came into our office in Peoria, and I think the biggest thing for him was he already had some good foundational groundwork. It was kind of just reshifting the why and giving him the education of why do we start our morning with hydration over caffeine? Why do we start our morning savory, getting good protein? And then also balancing his shift work and understanding what he needed in his body as opposed to off days. Really piggybacking on what Brad does, being active recovery, injury prevention. Maybe you can speak on that too. That's a big part of, looking at Caleb's career and making sure that we're putting him in a place of proactive as opposed to reactive. We're retired and then now we're in the doctor all the time because we're trying to play catch up. So maybe Brad, you can also speak on some of that component, what you see with your first responders that come into your office with that connection too that we've made with nutrition and injury prevention and also recovery.
Totally. And I'd say the big mesh point with that one, and Kim and I, we're like instant friends. Like it really, like, one, compatibility and personality, but also like the vision of what we desire for people, like very special, like unity there. And we love Kim and what she does. And it's cool because our skill set is so uniquely different, but the outcome is like clearly 100% in line. So what I get at is I would be a hypocrite if I said I lived by the principles that Kim teaches. So I'm a do as I say, not as I do clinician in that sense. But what we love about the junction with our practice is that we don't treat injuries, we treat people. And, I think probably the beginning of it was probably, so at present, 60 to 70% of all of our clientele are first responders that come in. My day-to-day work as a physical therapist and a clinician is orthopedic injuries. So you've got the neck pain, you've got somebody's knee blows out, or they got the back issue. People would come in and they're making, they're doing the right things as if they were a high school teenage athlete, or if they were even somebody who just lived a relatively, I guess, normal stress life. I don't know what we'd call it, but just, that civilian lifestyle that's quite different. Just seeing that our first responders were not reacting to treatment the same way that others did. And so the big pillars that we took away is that in our first responder community, there has to be an emphasis on nutrition, there has to be an emphasis on sleep, and there has to be an emphasis on mental health. And with that, as a physical therapist, like, that's not my scope. Those are not things that I know or do at an expert level. And so building relationships and finding the individuals with that, you have to have that cultural competency, obviously, but providing these services in a place where you can really help people see the mesh point of your nutrition is your rehab. Like, you can't separate those into two separate categories like that. It's the same thing. People that are not sleeping or, struggling with mental health things, it's all ultimately you treat people, you don't treat injuries. So I'd say that's the big takeaway with Kim and I's relationship, is watching the massive benefit we've seen with nutrition efforts and clean eating and understanding, all these core principles that she's giving out, but connecting those and not saying we don't live in silos, but this is almost like this big Venn diagram of overlapping effects that we all have on each other, and appreciating other people's specialties, but knowing that we can't do it alone.
Well, I love all of that, especially so for our audience that's listening. We know I don't know how fire is so much, but with cops, I'm just gonna say we've been saying this a lot.
Terrible.
Fire Fire's way ahead of the game on wellness. Cops have some catching up to do. We're gonna say that. But I really love the proactive. That's what we're doing with the mental and emotional component with wellness is the proactive. Everything in first responder field is reactive, and that's how the wellness has been for a long time. If you even ever take care of anything, you're waiting until that dumpster fire, and it's just like, or you could take some very simple steps. And I think this is one of the reasons that people do resonate with Kim is because she knows how to realistic. Like what I love what she did. One of your posts was the nutrition on the go on the fly, and you went into the gas station and you showed them, hey, okay, because here's the reality. Yeah, meal prepping sounds great in theory. Not everybody has time to meal prep, or you do it for a couple weeks and then life gets busy and you're like, I should have meal prepped. Or you're doing your shift work, nothing's open at 3 a.m. You're gonna go to the gas station or get fast food. So Kim really brings it into the reality of the first responder field. So I love that you went to the gas station and we're like, this is how you can eat healthy through the gas station.
Well, I think a big part of that too, real quick, is something I've really been focusing on a lot. Is I get a lot of people that come in that just say, "Well, I have to be perfect at this. I have to do this exactly right. I have to meal prep everything." And a lot of times, what I say to them is, it's not about like envision the person that you want to be. Like envision that healthy person as you're sitting in somebody's office. Like all your goals that you have. Instead of focusing on that, focus on the environment that person would live in. What does it look like? What does their kitchen look like? Are they setting out like their lemon salt water like Greg and Caleb do every morning? They're having that. And I remember Greg was like, Kim, why am I drinking this in the morning? And it's this idea of when we visually cue in and things in our environment, it reinforces those habits that we're trying to build. And so I think that's a big part of it is eating out. It's part of life. If you expect to eat in your kitchen every single day, Sunday dinner, it's not going to happen. It's understanding to have that a plan. I think having that plan and plan B. And so that's why going out to eat, having an out to eat guide, something to have that plan B is essential to keep you in momentum.
Yeah.
Greg, I kind of cut you off a little. I wanted you to put it in your little input too of where you started and so much of what you've learned.
Yeah, and it's been an uphill battle through my whole career. You get fit for the academy, and cops hate physical fitness in general. Now there are a few that are probably out there that are really good at physical fitness and nutrition, but they're the minority. And anytime during my career, Fire's got it figured out. They work out on duty. They have annual physicals they have to do, and that's come up in my career. It's come up with law enforcement for our department that, hey, we're going to do annual physicals. You have to pass. You have to do this. You have to do that. And boy, the fight is on, and every cop out there is going to fight that tooth and nail because they don't want to have that annual physical fitness. They don't want to have nutrition. And it's so bad for them because, like me, you sit in a patrol car for 12, 13 hours a day, and all of a sudden you spike your adrenaline and you have to jump out of your car and chase somebody or go to a call and fight somebody, and you're not stretched, you're not warmed up, you haven't been eating right. I lived on Diet Coke and fast food for most of my career just because that's all that was out there. Well, and that and breakfast burritos. I got to tell you, cops and firemen, they love their breakfast burritos. Oh
And
my!
taco salad and breakfast burritos.
And
It's true.
on a side note, I actually work for Heart Fit for Duty. I'm their mobile phlebotomist, so I go out and do the firefighters' labs, and I can't tell you how many times a day I'll draw one of the firemen's blood, and as soon as I'm done, they're going, good, I got to go get my breakfast burrito now. So they love their breakfast
What
burritos.
station is that? Tell me and I'll go show up there next time.
Yeah, it's not as much though. I think you're starting to make an impact on them. But when I met Kim, it was just such a rocky road, and we all know what what the keys are. And right now, you got 3 of the keys sitting right in front of you. Kim's going to help you with your nutrition. Brad's going to help you fix your body, and Tammy's going to help you fix your mind. And this is what you need to have in your life. You need to be able to find somebody that's culturally competent, find somebody that's willing to, that knows what they're talking about, and then listen to what they say. And I've struggled with that part. I know how to do it. I just haven't been doing it like I should. But really quick on meal prep, and Kim, you're so right. Meal prepping is so hard, and for years we just try to get meal prepping down, but you never follow through. Like, we forget to set chicken out for a dinner one night. Well, call a pizza, order a pizza. Instead of doing something healthy, we just go the easy route. But we've got our son and daughter-in-law living here with us now, and they're really trying to get nutritional healthy. And I'll tell you, for the last 2 months, they have, between my son and daughter-in-law and my wife, they have been meal prepping every meal. If you ask them what's for dinner tonight, they'll say, go look at the calendar, because it's already on the calendar. And in the last 2 months, I've dropped about 8 pounds because we're eating clean, we're eating healthy, we're eating nutrition-based foods, and I can actually see it starting to make a difference in my life. So that's one of the keys, is just try to meal prep. Maybe you can't meal prep all 3 meals, but try to have a plan in place, and listen to what Kim's got to say, because she's the best and she can tell you what to do.
Yes, I will.
She's bossy, very bossy.
Assertive, Caleb. I like to say it.
Okay. You could call it whatever you want.
Effective. You get through.
Effective.
So,
I like that.
effective. Well, let's talk about that, because we do not, with all of what we do not have an easy job. You, as first responders, do not have an easy job, but us coming in and trying to talk to first responders and actually get you to listen and change your ways. Kim goes into these, we go into rooms where, especially with cops, again, fire, like, a little bit easier for the most part. Kim, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, but we get cops at the back of the room with their arms crossed, being like, I'm voluntold to be here. What is this bullshit? And we gotta know what you're talking about to get through.
These guys.
So, Kim, what are some of the things that you have done to actually resonate? Like, and maybe not even you, what do you guys think that she does that actually gets through and makes sense for the first responders?
You want me to answer that? Or okay.
Yeah, either way. That was a weird.
It was okay. Like, they can absolutely just chime in. I think anytime there's twofold, because 2 parts of my job is going out in the field, and one is having people come in. Most of the time when people come into my office, I've met them on site somewhere before. So I've already built that trust, and had that first conversation, which leads to a second conversation, which most likely they're more open at that point to talk to me. When I walk into a department for the first time for first training, and they might not know anything about me or anything about HeartFit, it's legit coming in with the mindset that I am there for them. I am not there for me. I am there for them. I am there to support them. I'm there to be a non-judgment person. And so as soon as I open up with, yeah, you're drinking an energy drink in my class, cool, I'm going to teach you how to do that and balance your blood sugar today. And they're like, wait, what? You're not going to tell me to throw that in the trash can? In my mind, yes, I would love eventually for that to go away, or at least get down to 1. But I think building trust before that you should or you shouldn't do this is ultimately how we build relationships, and how, Brad and I were talking about, like, how we've formulated this. I think it's really, really important before we just say macros and weigh you. I'm after how you feel. I'm after how you're sleeping. I'm after how your hormones are. I'm after this. That weight loss is a byproduct. I could give a shit what that is. I care about how you are going through your day, and if you're able to recover and whatnot. Caleb probably can attest to, like, when we first met, I'm trying to even remember probably what I told you, but what resonated maybe during that meeting, and you were able to have an open mind to things.
I think I came to you obviously ready for help, so I was already kind of primed for listening to whatever you had to say, because whatever I was doing was not working. at all. And really, I came originally from a place of kind of vanity. I saw some pictures of myself with my children, and I'm like, ooh, I don't like the way that I look. And I'd go to the beach with the kids, and I'm like, yeah, this isn't working, right? And so I knew I had to change something, but I didn't know what to do. And so I was ready to do whatever. And so I came already primed with that mindset, and I didn't know much about nutrition at all. So I was willing to do whatever it took. And so when I went to go see Kim, she gave me just some really easy things to start with. And I think she'd confirm now that I'm a pretty good student, right? Especially if I don't know, the area that I'm kind of delving into, just to take whatever I'm told and just start there. And as I progressed over the months, I'm like, this is working. And I kept just doing it every single day. I'm pretty darn consistent. I don't miss many days because I prepare myself. So, I'm on shift for 24 hours, but sometimes, 48 or 72 if I'm picking up extra overtime shifts and stuff. So I just pack bags and bags and bags into my vehicle, and I have everything that I need when I travel. So that's kind of I don't know if that really answered the initial question, but yeah. So I was just ready for more information. I was ready for help, and that's kind of where I started.
Yeah. And you basically said two things there that I'm picking up on is someone has to want the help, right? You can't force it. And so if I go and teach someone and I feel that kind of resistance, my thought is always, if you need me tomorrow, here's my information. If you need me a year from now, I want to be that person for you. But you have to ultimately be ready. And if I recall when we met, you were doing a lot of things really, really well. And I think it's not reinventing the wheel. It was just looking at your day, looking at your goals, and just fine tuning, and also providing people the education of why. You can say, yeah, you should do this, but I want people to be able to leave my office and someday not need me and say, this is why I'm doing it. Right. So like Greg, when you get your labs back, you can read them and you know what they mean, so.
Well, and just to add to some of that, some of the things that Kim can do that I think that resonates with especially cops is that it's all baby steps. And it starts out easy, and she really pushes that baby step. And you have 100 things that you have to change in your life and your nutrition. And Kim says, change one thing, get it changed, and then we'll work on another thing, and then we'll work on another thing. And so it's very easy to follow her plans because it's just baby steps. And if it's cutting down that energy drink from 5 a day to 2 a day, that's a baby step. And then eventually 1 a day, and then none. But Kim's approach to it is very practical, it's very reasonable, and it's just take that first baby step. So I think that's a big part of what resonates with the cops and firefighters.
Yeah. And just one more thing, just not to take over, but one thing that I thought about the other day, I had a new patient in my office, and legit, we didn't talk about food for 45 minutes. We talked about everything else. But the next visit, guess what we talked about? That's when we started doing some of the work. And so a lot of that is just real people just want, we want to feel like someone supports us in that and understands. And it's easy for someone to come in and just say, you should do this, should do that, but actually listen to someone and where they're coming from and meeting them there. Yesterday I taught at Mesa Fire, and you have people from 19 years old to 45 years old. So how do you speak to all of those different seasons of life? And at the end of the day, nutrition is a practice, and you have to practice it daily, and everybody's in different modes in their life. But it still resonates and speaks to all of us. So anyway.
I think and that's what we do with coaching as well, is you have to set yourself up for success. If you're just like, all of a sudden you're like, I'm going to do keto, or I'm going to do this, you're going to go on a diet, and you're doing this big move, you might have the discipline to do it for a minute. But it's really about just doing small baby steps, again, to echo you guys, so that you create that lifestyle and that you want to set yourself up for success with everything that you do. So I love that approach for everything. I want to talk a little bit about sleep because we've all been, Caleb, didn't you just came off shift?
I did. Yes.
You look great.
Do I look like I
You look
just
too
came off
good
shift?
to have just come off shift.
It was a little bit of a long night too, actually.
So what do you do for your sleep?
So when I'm at the station, obviously it's really challenging because I just don't know what's going to happen, right? And so you always have a little bit of anxiety when you lay down on that bed because you could be on a campaign fire for 3 or 4 hours. You might get 3 hours and then have to go to, an overdose. And then you're back in a bed relatively quick. So it's just so inconsistent. But what I try to do is I eat my last meal at about 6 or 7. Usually take a shower after that. And then there's a couple different caffeine-free teas that I like. I'll put some collagen in that. And then I'll do that about an hour before bed. And then I just try to turn off as many lights as possible. And I try to get into bed at about 10. And last night was earlier. It was about 8:30, which was great. So I got about 3 or 4 hours of sleep before we got our first call. And then we were up for about half an hour, 45 minutes, went back to bed, then got up again at 4 for about an hour and a half. So then by the time I got back, it was about 5:30. So I didn't really get much more after that. So that stinks.
So sleep is one of the biggest issues for first responders across the board, and nobody's really figured out the right solution. We watched an amazing PhD talk about sleep at one of the conferences. She had the whole audience like, yes, 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 yes. And at the very end, she lost the whole audience because a firefighter stood up and said, okay, so what what should we be doing to get the best sleep? And her response was, well, ideally you can go to your chief and get the shifts and as soon as she said change the shifts, the whole audience just went, wah, wah, wah. Like that's not reality. So, Kim, both of you guys, Brad too, what is your guidance or advice as far as sleep?
Yeah, maybe anecdotally, just seeing individuals come in. I can think of one person specifically, collegiate swimmer, firefighter, female. Specimen of health in every way. Cardiovascular, fitness, nutrition, everything's in place. Comes in with a neck injury after a fire. We're working. It is not getting better. And it's like, man, this is really frustrating. Ultimately, the conclusion and the question was like, hey, how's your sleep going? And she's like, oh, it's trash. And I said, okay. So our first thing we say to everyone is you need to track it first. And the very first step in our, especially when you're focusing on that orthopedic side of things, is let's just get some baseline data. You can spend $30 on Amazon and get the trashiest little watch that you put on, but it's something, you know. I think a lot of it is drawing some awareness that, anything that's measured improves. And sometimes just the awareness of like, hey, Brad's going to ask me about this when I go in on Tuesday. Let's gather some data. The cool part, as a result of this individual and multiple others, there's a local municipality that we basically said, hey, we'll purchase. I don't know if you guys know about a Whoop strap, WHOOP. So Whoop, in our opinion, is probably one of the best wearable, biometric pieces of equipment that you can get. And it's great because it'll look at strain and it'll look at recovery. It utilizes, skin temperature, heart rate variability, accelerometer, all of those factors, and it puts them into this very readable, digestible information source of like, this is how much you worked and this is how much you recovered. And if you spend more money than you have in your bank account, that's debt, right? And people get that. So for us, like getting people in that mindset of find something. There's a $4 app that we use. It's called what is the one? Oh, it'll come to me. But there's like just even simple things of having your phone next to your nightstand and you press a button and it'll listen just throughout the night. And any rustling of the sheets, any snoring, it'll give you some suggested, even without any biometrics. But ultimately getting some data to begin with people saying like, where am I? And I think that'd be the equivalent of Kim of just like, don't change anything. Just tell me what you're eating. Just tell me what's coming into the system. And that one, like, massively effective in just getting people aware of what's happening. And then the individualized nature you talk about, we've touched on it multiple times. Greg, you talked about it, but you don't ask a fish to climb a tree. Like, the environment should be compatible with the task. And so you get these individuals, and just like you said, Tami, like, you ask somebody to change their shift, like, they're like, I'm not going to go get crucified or be the person who, is blacklisted in the department because I asked for something different. Most of the time, just say, hey, just manage you and do what you can. And in these non-optimal environments, how can you optimize the non-optimal? And so a lot of that, Caleb, you made a great point about, what do we consume? And you can get into the blue light conversations. You can get into room temperature. You can get into, tactile stimulus of blankets and, surfaces that you sleep on, orthopedic neck pain. There's 1,000 factors. But what I love about reading measurable data is that it removes the emotions from the situation. Someone comes in, I see your REM and your deep, and we can say, oh, like, we got up for a call right here. Great. You don't have any control over that. Well, what about what time you went to bed? And like, well, we watched a movie. And it's like, well, you had control over that. Other things that get into, sometimes it's a bladder issue, sometimes it's neck pain, and they're tossing and turning because of some orthopedic issue. And it's like, you don't have a sleep problem, you have a neck problem. And if we manage these symptoms, all of a sudden the output or the quality of the sleep that you get. If you ever heard of Kelly Starrett, it's called The Ready State. He's fantastic. If you're not familiar with Kelly, but he owns CrossFit San Francisco. He's a physical therapist, but he definitely has exemplified what we've talked about today about this global experience of taking care of people. But he talks about sleep density and sleep hygiene. And he's like, it's not always about the duration that we obsess over, but it's what quality. And it's very parallel with Kim's nutrition. Like, it's sometimes we just count calories, but we need to ask what's in those calories. And so sleep is the same way of, am I achieving heavy REM or heavy deep? And you look at the mental health issues. We had an Ironman triathlete firefighter come in. He was, again, another one of these individuals that just so physically fit, and that's why they stand out to me. And he's getting 15 minutes of REM a night. And I said, dude, this is a train wreck. Like, this is amyloid plaques. This is dementia. This is the stuff that will take your life in the next 30 years. And I'm not trying to be doom and gloom. I'm just trying to give you the reality of it. But his solution, he did a couple sessions at EMDR, mental health services. And he had a 300% increase in REM with 2 sessions of EMDR. And so, as much as I wanted him to stretch and, do all the foam roll and all the stuff that I love, I wasn't the solution. But it all comes back into understanding, like, the root cause. Don't blow away the smoke if you're not going to put out the fire.
My ketamine therapy was
Oh,
excellent
massive.
for resetting my nervous system to be able to feel. It was probably the first time in 20 years that I felt like my body and my brain could relax. So that was a big game changer for me as well. And I still occasionally will go get boosters. Like, if I realize, hey, I've been working a lot here, I have a lot of stressors lately, and I could kind of feel it in my body where I'm like, I'm just a little bit more irritable. I'm not as sharp as I am. I'll go get one of those boosters, and it just completely resets my body. And I've noticed a significant increase in my ability to get to bed and stay asleep after those. So that's been a big component for me too.
I think on the nutritional front, the biggest thing when I teach, I have a presentation, I talk about energy, fatigue, caffeine, sleep, all these kind of things. It's how do we put deposits in our body throughout the day in order to help facilitate that sleep? It's not a matter of having a 30-minute sleep routine, which is really highly effective. It's also what have we been doing throughout the day? And sometimes that is unpredictable. We can't predict when Caleb's getting a call or when and Greg was on shift or you're up all night. But what you can predict and what you can start doing is how do you fuel your body with balancing blood sugar throughout the day? Because that's going to be ultimately
Huge.
Most of my first responders that I work with are under eating all day and then eating their largest meal at night, which guess what that does? It heats and signals the body that it's time to digest and be awake. The body likes to be cooled at night and before bed. That's why taking that shower is great, and maybe finishing with a little cold water on your skin, also a cool room. The other thing is that I see that's highly effective or ineffective with sleep is how much caffeine we're consuming throughout the day, and how much. Most of the time, I see bolus amounts of caffeine throughout the day, 200 milligrams here, an hour later, another 200 milligrams. So I like to teach how do we titrate out caffeine throughout the day in 50 to 100 milligram microdoses, and making sure your caffeine isn't your first consumption first thing in the morning. You're allowing that natural adenosine to kind of clear out your natural rhythm of your body. So it's this idea of we need to clear this mountain. We got this mountain of our shift ahead. We don't want to go too high over the mountain and crash out by getting too much of anything, whether it's too much carbohydrates in one sitting, too much protein in one sitting, too much caffeine. We want to think about how do we balance your day? How are we able to take a little bit all day long? So it's about a little bit more, often. So the other thing is, when are we cutting off caffeine? Like, that's a big one. If we're drinking caffeine, I mean, I know there's a few of you guys can drink caffeine at 5 and you're still asleep and you're fine. But most people can't. Most people are like, just sitting there thinking about their day. So I think that's another big, how do we put deposits in our bank account so that we have we have that full account, like you were saying, because every time we do these other things, it's like using a credit card. You might get that immediate dopamine hit or that immediate energy, but you're going to pay for it later. And that's
and the interest sucks on those.
And the interest sucks now, right? And the other thing to note, just to correlate sleep and, like, say, weight loss, if you are if you are lacking sleep, you're also going to have an increase of a hormone in your brain called ghrelin. And ghrelin is the hunger increaser. I equate it to the movie Gremlins. Once those little guys are activated, it's really hard to turn them off. When you are lacking sleep, you're going to have a higher increase of ghrelin. And what we want is a higher increase of leptin. And leptin's the hunger suppressor. So when we can get some good 90-minute REM sleep, or those sleep cycles, that's really where we start seeing more weight loss too.
Kim, 35 minutes, in case you're wondering, we were betting in the clinic how long it would take for you to talk about ghrelin. I thought it was going to be way faster. I thought we were going to be in the first 10 minutes, but 35 minutes was really good. I'm proud of you. You waited.
And just to piggyback on that, my sleep's terrible. And I don't sleep well, and I've gotten to the point where we're trying to decide, do we need a new bed? Do I need new pillows? Do we need new sheets? What's going to help my sleep? And the biggest culprit is the phone. And everybody says it's not hard. Put your phone down. Don't pick up your phone at night. And I am the biggest hypocrite. I'll tell everybody in the world, if you want to sleep, don't get on your phone at night. And every night I'm on my phone, but even now I'm learning some different things, like Kim just said, balancing your day. I eat very minimal all day long. I try to get my protein in, but my biggest meal, and although we're eating healthy and much more nutritional foods, dinner's at 6 p.m., 6:30, and that's my biggest meal of the day. And then, I'm hoping to be in bed by 8:30, 9 o'clock at the latest. And I just think maybe that's not helping my sleep issues either.
And it's because you're warming up the body too. And a big thing that I also see is and not saying you're doing this, Greg, but a lot of patients I work with are overconsumption of carbs by themselves. Okay, so that's another thing you guys have all heard me talk about. When we eat carbs by themselves, that's what spikes blood sugar, gives us that initial bump. So if I'm coming back from a call out and maybe eating that bowl of ice cream, popcorn, something that's comforting, because that's what our body loves at night is dopamine, and that we get that through food or a show. But if we eat that carb by itself, it gets us to sleep just fine because it gives us that cozy feeling. But about 3 hours later, when our blood sugar tanks, that's what's waking us up in the middle of the night. So if you are going to eat before bed, ideally pairing that. But I would love for you to balance that day, Greg, where you're not getting that big meal at night, because that is going to affect your sleep because your body thinks now it's time to digest and work overtime.
Yeah.
So our background in rehab, obviously physical therapy, there's a massive emphasis on developmental disabilities, brain injuries, strokes. So neurological function is that's the meat and potatoes of what we do professionally. And sometimes I think the PT, especially the orthopedic world, they get very biomechanical. But for us, the neuro part of it, one of the things that we love and we feel is super important to teach is that optic nerve. When the sun rises and it passes through the atmosphere, this heavy amount of ultraviolet red light passes through until the sun's at about 30 degrees on the horizon. That stimulus in the morning and the evening is basically that up and down regulation for the day. But we all know that if you try and look at the sun at noonday, it's going to melt your eyeballs. And so the blue light stimulus that's much heavier during the middle of the day is upregulatory. So you explain to a first responder, you break your phone out and you provide this blue light stimulus after the sun has gone down and when your body's trying to go to bed. A lot of people can put their phone down and fall asleep relatively quick. It's not always about the ability to achieve unconsciousness, but what's happening during that time, the delay to achieve REM and to achieve deep sleep is delayed substantially, or it'll limit the amount of time people can stay in those depths. So talking about that sleep density, the blue light stimulus, and quite frankly, anything that's upregulatory, that call that you go on, those are things that you can't control. But the things that you can control, the ability to have a downregulatory red light experience as you prepare for rest is going to increase sleep density. And removing the blue light stimulus is going to not have this red light, green light, back and forth. The body saying, well, what am I supposed to do? Great great grandma, great great grandpa. The sun would go down, and what type of light did they have? It was infrared, right? Everything was red light. And so if you look at the ability to follow seasons, that circadian rhythm of winter to summer, artificial light sources like the industrial era has basically mutated and distorted our body's ability to say, I don't know when I'm supposed to be up and when I'm supposed to be asleep, indifferent of being on calls or working shift work. You're working swings or graves. Like it's not so much about that as much as it is training the body to know this is when and how I rest. And quite frankly, you can train the body to rest in the middle of the day if that's the circadian rhythm that's programmed.
Well, and I like that you guys also talked about, the EMDR, ketamine treatment. So the holistic, and I always say it, I talk about woo-woo stuff all the time because I do all the woo-woo things, but the thing is the woo-woo works. So as a clinical hypnotherapist, 45 minutes of deep hypnosis is equivalent to 4 hours of REM sleep. So you can listen to guided imagery, meditations. There's tons of stuff online. Eventually we'll have our own recordings out, but if you listen to those, it'll help you just kind of calm, because when you're sleeping, this is part of the problem, is when you're sleeping, your body's healing and repairing. So if you're not getting that sleep, your body's not able to repair. And so if you're ever in if you're doing yoga or a meditation or any kind of class, or even just a training where you have someone falling asleep, don't heckle them. Understand that they are like, okay, their body is so desperately trying to heal. And so let them. The other thing I wanted to talk about too, because you were talking about the carbs, and we do that when we come home, ice cream, pasta, comfort foods, right? But I've mentioned this book before, and it's actually, I believe it's out of print, but you can still find it. And it is a little bit more woo-woo, but it's still on point. So it is called Constant Cravings A to Z. And I love it because it goes into kind of like what the meaning behind the craving is, because anything that you're craving, there's a mental and emotional component, and then sometimes there's a vitamin deficiency, a nutrient deficiency. It's like, hey, you think you need this, but you actually need vitamin A or whatever. But the mental emotional component. So you guys mentioned ice cream and you mentioned like pasta, right? So just vanilla ice cream is the desire to feel secure and full. Okay. So you come home, you had a day where you were not feeling safe, you need ice cream. It's because your body, your mind is trying to make you feel safe. You go into pasta, just plain pasta, and it breaks it down to like lasagna and garlic bread, whatnot. But pasta, again, wanting comfort and reassurance. So you're coming home, you want pasta. If your significant other or maybe somebody you work with were to reassure you, that craving might actually dissipate. And so this book, I pull this out all the time, to the point where I don't like meatloaf. Like if you were to, I'm like, I don't ever make it. It's not something I would ever order. It is not in my wheelhouse of foods. But Chris and I were in Vegas one time, and it was a stressful thing. And we go to the restaurant and I'm like, I want meatloaf. Like I'm craving meatloaf. Like what the heck? And I gotta look it up. I can't remember what it means, but it was like tension and stress or something. And I was like, oh, because we were arguing, and I was like, you're making me want meatloaf. Like what the
So,
So, yeah.
yeah, Tami, asking for a friend, green chili chimichangas with sour cream. Is there anything in the book for what that means?
Hold on. Okay, you
I'm
guys
gonna
keep talking.
stop by your office after this, Brad.
Kim and I are going to show up at the same restaurant. Like, what?
Oh, and that's actually happened before when I was teaching out at Glendale PD. I was teaching a brief like evening class, and I went out to Westgate in the evening and grabbed some food, and a bunch of their bike cop, all the guys that were patrolling Westgate were eating. So there's about 12 of them, and they all freaked out thinking, oh my God, what am I eating? She's going to look at my plate.
Hold it up.
And
Don't
they
let her see.
were doing so well. I was like, I'm so proud of you guys. You're doing a really good job. But I go, if I'm in this restaurant, you guys are doing a good job. So
Well, I got
Tami, go ahead.
I just pulled up, so it has Mexican food in here and it has like burritos and whatnot. So fear of making the wrong decision, procrastination, feeling stuck. And then when you add on some extra cheese and sour cream, high stress, in a Midwest job, and depression.
Ooh. Is it like a palm reading? Are you like, you're telling me you just like revealed all my childhood trauma, every coping mechanism. Tami, I love when I come across literature and research that reinforces the woo-woo, because there's some people that no matter what you say, I think, I mean, this isn't a political statement, but I think COVID really drove that. People got to the point where a doctor told you something that was wrong.
Yes.
And all of a sudden you're like, I can't trust them. And there's this, whether that's real or perceived, it doesn't matter. But ultimately, a massive increase in my professional necessity to be able to tell people this is where it's written. And not only did somebody professional say it, but these are the actual biological, systems that are in place. And this is the test that was done. And this is why these outcomes are existing. But one of the most recent ones that I love that looks woo-woo, but confirmed by research, Whoop actually put the study on, but it was about gratitude journaling.
Oh, yeah.
And it's individuals that take time before they go to bed and they write down, what do I have? How have I been given? And people who are religious, whether that's prayer or that's literally getting a hard copy piece of paper and writing down, I mean, it drives that parasympathetic, like, I'm safe. And look at all these things that I have and the people in my life that I'm grateful for. And even as going back to your grandma and grandpa, or your, some third grade teacher, these people that have been there for you, that sense of, I'm in my cave, the world's scary out there, but I'm safe in here, and how my pillow smells. And the studies even show that sleeping with a partner there's better sleep quality with the disruption of a partner per sense of security than there is for someone who sleeps alone. And you're like, that's woo-woo to me. Like, okay, I've got somebody that makes me feel safe and I know that they're there and I'm there for them. Like, it's a really neat perception of, how is biology responding to environment? And I don't know, I think that's really cool.
Well, gratitude so everything's energy. And this is where I earned my doctorate in metaphysical science. I have a doctorate in woo-woo shit, right? So because everything is energy, everything is frequency, it's vibration. And if you go into the vibration chart, you'll see that shame is the lowest vibration. Guilt is right above that. And a lot of people live in shame and guilt. And so just to clarify, so shame is internal of, I'm a piece of shit. I'm not good enough. It's the me part. Guilt is you feel guilty because of external, like I should have been better to this person. I should have been nicer. I shouldn't have done that. So guilt, I think, for first responders is a lot of what keeps everybody awake at night. Keeps the coulda, shoulda, wouldas. I should have done this. If I would have done that. If that call, yes, you guys are going to hard calls, but it's not. We've talked about this a lot. In the first responder field, it's not necessarily always the hard calls that are taking everybody out, because there are things in place. If you go to a really hard call, for the most part, most departments have some sort of SISM debrief. There's some sort of, it's like, hey, it's socially acceptable. If you went to a hard call and you're like, hey, I need to go talk to somebody, everybody in the department's going to be like, yeah, that makes sense. But the close calls, it wasn't a big deal, but you're having a hard time, that's where it's like, oh, what's wrong with me type thing. And so we live in these spaces in our mind. So in order to kind of get out of that, and you can pull this up and I'll try to find a chart and put it in the description, but you can look at the different things. So you have shame and guilt, and then you step it up to, fear, discontentment, contentment, joy, and then you get up into the love and light and gratitude and happiness and the high vibes. And the problem is with those high vibe, and it's not a hippie thing. It's like high vibration, right? So if you're living in this guilt and shame, you're not going to magically just go into this love and light vibe. You're going to have to stair step it up. Just like with everything else, you have to take the baby steps. And it's like, you know what? I'm miserable today. I'm going to be a little less miserable tomorrow. And then eventually, if you keep working on it, you can get to a point where it's like, okay, I think I'm actually happy. Gratitude, if you are practicing gratitude, I call it grounding in gratitude, where it's almost impossible to be in any other kind of vibration, any other kind of thought process when you are in gratitude. And if you don't know how to do that, you start with what is around you. The example I use all the time is you stub your toe. It hurts. You cuss. You're just like, you're all mad. You go through the human reaction, but then you immediately drop into gratitude of, I'm thankful I have a toe to stub. I'm thankful that I have a foot. I'm thankful that I can feel. I'm thankful that I have a chair. And then you start building. I'm thankful I have a rug. I have a roof over my head. I'm thankful that I have a family. And you keep building gratitude until all of a sudden it's like you can just take a breath and you're like, okay, you can breathe again. It's going to help with the anxiety. It's going to help you calm your mind down. So at night, instead of counting sheep, count gratitude. Every night I have trained my brain that the first thing, it is on autopilot. As soon as I hit my pillow, the first thought that pops in is, I'm so thankful. I made it.
So gentleman came in, and this was like such a vivid experience for me. Police officer who was the epitome of happiness and kindness. And we know that that's not always the predisposition of our sheepdogs. But just such a happy guy. Anyways, one day he walks in the clinic and he's getting treated for an injury, and visibly he's not well. And so we have a private room that when stuff like that happens, you're kind of audible, and we go in this private room and I'm doing his physical therapy, and I say, hey, you good? And he's like, no, I'm not good. And I was like, you want to talk about it? And he's like, yeah. He said, my very first fatality that I ran on as a police officer, he said it was a vehicle and there were twins in the back seat and one of them passed away. And we won't get into the details, but I mean, he remembers every moment of it, right? And he said in that car accident, there was some solvent from the vehicle that had leaked out. And he said there's a very strong smell in the moment. And so just 25 years later, the night before I'm talking to him with this story, he said, I went on a call last night, and he said, I went up to this car. He said, this smell, he goes, I was having a great day, totally normal day, and this smell hit me. He's like, and it was all real again instantly. And he's like, I didn't know it was still there. Like that association and obviously olfactory smell is very memory driven. But just you talk about, the backpack full of rocks, we fill this thing day in and day out with this stuff that we're carrying around. And I think we're doing a better job of pulling out the rocks on the top of the bag and being like, oh, we had a call last night. Everyone sit at the breakfast table next morning. Hey, you good? That little girl was wearing pajamas that my daughter has, like talking about stuff now is good. But I really do. I know the duration that things had been in the backpack. It magnifies the intensity substantially. And so that's one that we try and be very, very normal and not overly dramatic about it, but also to be very direct with people like, hey, that stuff is in there. And your profession has said that that's normal, and it's not. And if you want to look at the life expectancy of a first responder after they retire, I can show you biologically that it's not. And we can make associations and help you understand. So again, not to be dramatic and, fear and doom and gloom, but also be very direct with people to say, these are the things that will affect your children's future with their mom or dad, because your ability to do what you need to do as a parent, and you're even just being physically present and alive, it will be affected by those rocks in the bottom of the bag.
Well, I touch a lot on too, like mental health with nutrition, because 90% of our serotonin is created in our gut. And
Huge.
so it's yesterday I had this somebody was asking me about a supplement, and I said, here's my thing with that is until we clean up the environment, we can't fertilize it. It'll never grow. And so when we talk about mental health, when we talk about recovery from injury, when we talk about change and all this, we can't throw on too much at one time. And we look at how do we clean up this environment of the gut, which links that vagus nerve to the brain, and all of those so correlate and kind of wraps all these things that we're talking about kind of together with injuries and with mental health and all you guys talked about. So
I had an Army Ranger in a couple weeks ago, shoulder injury, needle in his shoulder. You guys have done dry needling or acupuncture before? Have you guys ever done that?
you've done it to me.
Yeah, well, Kim's like a connoisseur. She's like a wine tasting needler. But anyway, this guy needling his shoulder, and there's a perineural bundle in your upper trap that all that stress that we carry. Anyway, I said, hey, how you feeling? He goes, this has been great. It's super helpful. I said, well, I want to needle your trap. It's going to help. And I knew he was an Army Ranger, and I know how certain people are wired for certain jobs, and he may be real sweet on the outside, but I know that there's somebody else in there that has to do a different job. Anyways, I needle his upper trap. He passes out cold. And
Oh,
not massively uncommon. I mean, definitely it's an expression of a fight or flight response that's extremely heightened, right? But he passes out. Anyways, I'm there just sitting with him. He comes to, and this immense sweat comes, and he's drenched. And the first question I asked him, I said, "Are you actively, in therapy?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "There's some skeletons in the closet you're working on, aren't there?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I said, "That's not a normal response." And people will get like a sweat, or they'll get even like a little nauseous if you stimulate some of those parasympathetic or sympathetic nervous system pathways. But it was just wild that he came to, and he's like, all of that stuff's on the surface, and he's working on it, which just made it. I mean, literally, it was a tiny little switch, and all of a sudden, bam. And he's like, I never knew that my body would react that way to a stressful stimulus. And his entire life, it's been the exact opposite. But it's all connected. You can't separate them.
It's all connected, and I want to just say too before we wrap this up, when you get those big, like, unexpected reactions, understand, like, that is a lot of people are like, something's wrong, something's wrong. It's like, no, your body's trying to move that energy out. It is trying to heal. And so sometimes it can come off as uncomfortable, scary. It can seem like it's a negative, but it's actually not. It's your body's reacting the way that it needs to protect you and do all of
Yeah.
that. So, I love this conversation. We could talk for forever on it. We're just skimming the surface. I will say that, like, this is kicking off the Nutrition and Fitness Month. We are also going to be doing an injury recovery and prevention month in, I want to say, May. I got to double check that. And then we're also going to be doing sleep, straight up sleep. So if you guys want to come back, you're more than welcome to come back. And then we're
Please.
going to be doing ketamine, a dedicated ketamine one, and psychedelic. All of the drugs that aren't the medical parts of it, we're going to kind of debunk some of that, because ketamine is it's here and it is effective, but we need to kind of unpack that. So you're welcome to come back to that one too. So I
Awesome.
want to honor everybody's time, and if somebody were to just tune into this last part, what is your 2-second mic drop little piece of advice or guidance that you have for our audience? Whoever wants to start.
I'll go first. Sleep is important. Put your phone down. Don't take it to bed. Don't get on it for hours and hours and then expect to get a good night's sleep. And the other part is to find Kim, find Brad, find Tami, find us at Law Enforcement Coaching. talk to people that are culturally competent and get this ball rolling. Baby steps, do something. And you've got 3 experts right here that are the best in the field. They can help you take that first baby step.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think starting with something small and mastering it, and for me, it was the salty ocean lemon water, right? That Kim has us start off with in the morning. I'd always start the day before, the night before, I'd have it prepped ready, so in the morning could just grab it and go. But I've done that consistently every single day, even on vacation. I bring my stuff with me so that I don't skip a beat. So I think starting small but being consistent is probably the best advice that I could give to somebody just kind of starting out.
Um, First, I just want to say thank you. Like, it's been a huge pleasure and a great honor to come and be with you and to be in a room with individuals like you and share this. Like, this is beyond my wildest dreams. Like, I never thought 15 years ago I'd have this privilege. So, first, thank you. The second, I'd just add on to what Tami said about, like, I hear a lot of people say, like, what should it look like? We check range of motion or something. What should it be? And a lot of times my response is there is no should. Like, there just is. Like, this is where you are. And I think that acceptance, that first step of just it is what it is. We say that a lot. Sometimes I think that's a kind of a maladaptive response of just like um complacency or a lack of feeling like people have control over their life. But there is no should, I think, is a healthy way of saying I am where I am, and your body is a system. There's biology, there's cells, and there's systems and responses, and why is the body doing this? And it's like, well, let's find out what it is underneath that's causing your body to respond this way. To me, it's a beautiful thing, in that sense of gratitude, just to look and to say, we live in an incredible time in the history of the world, and we have access to so many things. And the ability for us to dig into and understand and to feel and manage what it is that our bodies need, and to be a part of these incredibly intricate systems that associate with technology and medicine and the first responding community, like, what a privilege. So there is no should. People are where they are, and ultimately let's peel back that onion and find out what's underneath. And if there are some things that can help change the trajectory of the quality of your life, let's do it.
I think the biggest kind of talking point that I can think of that comes to mind after this conversation is don't underestimate that ripple effect of your ability to make a change and you don't know who's watching that, whether it's your children, whether it's your crew, whether it's your coworkers, whether it's your parents. And when you make small changes, it makes people think like, why are they doing that? What is that? They see the change in you. And you ultimately take that knowledge I've given you, Brad's given you, Caleb, all of us has given, and we extend it beyond that. And that's where real change starts happening. That's why we've seen this change in a lot of the departments here in the state, is because it takes just a few people to start rolling with that and saying, hey, this is the culture it's been for however many years. But what if we try something new? What if we are open to it? And nutrition, like I said, is a practice. And my softball player background into me is I always think about this idea of playing catch. Like, every time you do it, you get a little bit better. And some days you suck and you can't throw it to first base. And I've been there. You make errors. It's everybody sees you, but you get up and you try again. And every day you practice it, you get a little bit better.
Well, I want to piggyback on what you're saying too, because with the change, when you start making little changes, sometimes we think, hey, we feel great. We're eating healthier. We feel better. We're sleeping better. We look better. And then all of a sudden, an external person will maybe talk shit or kind of bring you down or heckle you a little bit and be like, oh, like da da da. And because when we change or when we kind of increase our vibration, those that are not, again, going back to that low vibe, people that are living in that low vibe don't like high vibe people, because it makes them look at themselves. So the thing is, I want you guys to know the quickest people to criticize are, for me, that's always a red flag indicator that person needs help and Kim has dealt with this more times than she can count probably,
Mhm.
absolutely needs what is happening but they're not. Again, this goes back to the very beginning of this conversation. You have to be ready. You have to be ready for it. And I'll wrap it up with my little 2 cents is I call it the slingshot. I do this myself where it's like, okay, I'm going to start, working out more. And then I find myself on the couch, or I'm going to do business and I'm like, I'm going to take a nap. Well, for me, what I call that is the slingshot. I'm pulling back, I'm reversing and going the other way for a second. Because then once I'm like, okay, I don't like doing whatever I'm doing over here, I pull that momentum and then it's now I can go full speed with it. So that shoulding yourself too, if you're like, hey, I should be doing this and this and this, but I'm over here again, accepting it and then asking why, what do I need in order to get to that point? So on that note, thank you guys all for being here. For the audience tuning in, if you want to get in touch with anybody, I will put their contact information in the description. You can reach out. As always, we are always all here to support you. Just reach out. Hopefully you found something useful out of this. Share, like, subscribe, and until next week.